So I've noticed that overnight the gasoline would just keep dripping all night long. I would probably say overnight it would have dripped about 8 ounces or something like that. And now we need to find a way to make this stop. And I have a pretty good idea that it's the carburetor float or the float valve. When taking off the carburetor, the first step, you need to take this off, which basically what you want to do is disconnect the choke from here. And once the choke cable is loose, then you go to the carburetor, and after loosening the sides, which this one I just took off, you're gonna flip the top of the carburetor this way. And once you flip, you can pull the carburetor out. Of course, disconnect all the tubes first. Putting the carburetor back in is the same thing. The top of the carburetor faces this way. So we put the carburetor in, then flip it up. But we can only do this if the choke cable has enough slack for you to do that. Otherwise, you will be fighting that choke cable. It's very challenging. There are probably better ways to do it, but that's what it is. That's how we did it.
After the carburetor sat for 30 minutes, we are now pulling it out of the container. Now we're going to give it a gasoline bath to get all the chem dip off. Now you'll notice that the gasoline does not mix with the chem dip chemical. That it will be separate from the chemical. So we are currently looking at the bottom of the carburetor. Our carburetor was having issues where the float inside would not push the valve float down enough and it wouldn't seal. So we had a solution where if we bent this little metal tab that connects to the float valve down, that the float would put in more work, but it would push it down farther, forcing it to seal more. And then
this metal tab, just bend it a little bit down.
And after testing it, it does not dump gasoline everywhere anymore. Before, it was dumping fuel out of our vent valve here, and it was flooding the cylinder.
Okay, push the float up and down. Wait. Yeah, go. Okay. How about we do it like this so you can see the... Okay, try it out. Push it up. Now you can see the metal tab pushing the float valve farther in. So it was just slightly bent down, and that fixed our problem. Now we're gonna put the carburetor back together.
We had to get new bolts for our carburetor because they were all stripped out, but they were M4 by 0.7 by 12 millimeters.
And that's the bolts for the bottom of the carburetor. Okay.
Our first step will be to hook up our choke. It will go inside of the threaded hole right there, and then it'll just screw in there. It's one of the hardest parts of the carburetor to put in. So we just barely hooked up the inlet for the fuel and our choke back here.
It's the choke
Cable.
and it's the fuel inlet. Okay.
After a lot of yanking and pulling, we managed to seat this onto the carburetor and then get it into that hole there. Now we're going to put the clamps on and screw them on so it stays.
Fighting the clamp.
Okay, stick it in there. And then pass me a screwdriver. That's gone.
No, it's right